Hello, I'm AppyX Toycat, and 599 episodes ago, I started a new Minecraft world, and after 5.5 years of play between the Xbox 360 and Xbox One editions of the game, I decided to move this world over to the Bedrock edition in episode 350 in May 2018. This means that as of Christmas Day last year, I've officially now spent more time in this world on the Bedrock edition than I ever did in the console, which gives me the very unique position of having a world which is more or less half-crafted between two very different versions of Minecraft, which gives me a fairly unique position in being able to talk about what makes these two versions of the game different, not just as versions, but indeed in how they actually affect how I and many of you play Minecraft. And so let's look at the Let's Play world today, give it a true retrospective of how it's changed now that we are permanently on the Bedrock edition. We'll talk about the big potential of switching to Java now that decent conversion software exists. However, I think before we move into the future of this world, it's important instead to talk about the past, because obviously this world was started on the Xbox 360, which might bring many things to mind for you, but there are three big differences between how I used to play Minecraft when I was a console edition player mostly, versus how I play now, and they're not necessarily all positive changes. Which means that the world is generated in a fundamentally different way, and this seriously affects how you play. Here are the three biggest changes behind a console world versus a current one. So right now I am on a rainy world, and so that means my render distance is really low. If you play on a Bedrock or Java world, you can usually only see the biome which is right in front of you. However, from my Xbox 360 generated world, I can see in front of me right now a savanna biome. It's actually a desert, but we'll ignore that. I can see a mountainous biome over there. I can see a swamp. I can see just behind me there is this lovely forest, and then I can see an extreme hills in the distance over there. That's not even counting the ocean, the river, and my man-made birch forest biome, but we'll leave that to the side, which means there are 6 separate biomes I can see right now, and that is crazy to think about. Being able to see multiple biomes at any point in time, and being at maximum 800 blocks from your furthest Minecraft biome, and that would be edge to edge of a Minecraft world, means that realistically, you never were that far from the resources that you needed. There is a huge difference in how you have to explore modern day Minecraft. When you find a birch forest, you know that means that in 800 blocks, you might very well be finding the same exact resources, and so as a result, transportation becomes a bigger theme in a big way, but also it becomes much more expected that you have to explore not as a fun activity to do in an afternoon before coming back to your base, but instead that exploration is something that takes days in-game and hours in real life. If we look at my world, you can actually see this happening in real time, where the main base of the world here is made up of so many different biomes, from icicle, from icy over here, to jungly over here, to it's flattened over here, but you can see that fundamentally the world was made up of so many different colors of biome that actually it feels like a very unique and very compacted down place, something that would be so hard to make today. That's just the Xbox 360 portion. The Xbox One portion has a similar effect. It's a slightly lesser degree, but if you look over here, you can see savanna biome, roof forest, desert, plains, I would guess, and then a forest over here, and then back to savanna, back to a forest, roofed I'm guessing, and then you can see just how many different biomes you find in a given point in time, and then a short distance over the ocean, it's entirely different. Go to the east and it's also entirely different. That was the expected way that a world would work for so long, and now that I'm used to Bedrock, I have to say, there's a certain charm to these smaller biome worlds that I wish Minecraft would bring back, even if only as a toggle. Oh, what happened over here? You can see something has gone horribly wrong on this map, I think. Or maybe it's in the wrong... No, that's definitely in the right place. It's just the map is missing some details. Let's go and fix that, maybe, and see if it is broken. I'm guessing that as we go closer, we'll update the map a little bit, and you can see, yeah, this is how the world would generate if it was Bedrock now. There'd be just one biome there, but if you look at what I've done to the world, combined with how it generated, you can see just how different it truly looks now. Something which is kind of beautiful, right? By the way, I 100% recommend having a big map of your world. It's so useful for illustrating things like distance between 2 points. For example, that's where my cave house is, over here with the sugarcane farm, and down here is where my regular house is. You can see the distance between them in a way that's hard to visualize in-game, especially if it's raining and dark. You know, why do I insist on doing this video in the rainy dark? It's because it shows that sometimes you can't see as far into the future as you think you can, and a great example of that would be my world border. I was so proud of keeping the world Xbox 360 size for so long, and so that would be everything in this little square right here. In fact, to show you, let's break this down, and let's give you a good vibe of what this actually looks like. This middle portion is the Xbox 360 world, and the outer ring is just the beginning of the Xbox One world. And nowadays, the world looks more like, well, I have to really zoom out. Now the world would look something like this, but times 50 if you wanted to see the entire thing, because the world is infinite now. I guess technically speaking, you'd have to go infinitely, but it's not actually infinite. Also, I just got an achievement for that. Nice. Even though I switched to playing near exclusively on the PC version of Bedrock Minecraft about a year ago, I still haven't got all of the achievements because I did them all on the Xbox versions where they mattered much more. But funnily enough, I only just did this one right now because I already had the map. Something that I just think is very funny because it's a lot more than 3x3, right? But yeah, when you look at this world, you can see the other unique thing, and that is the map limited size that used to exist. And so 864 by 864 used to be an entire Minecraft world. A lot of people saw this as a huge downside and they were excited for the idea of infinite worlds coming, but to me, I always thought it was a huge upside. You know what? I'll actually go to sleep. Wait, the map looks terrible in the rain. This is a very normal way to get into a bedroom. If anyone says otherwise, then they're just being, I don't know, IBX toy bigoted. Oh no, I didn't make it here in time. Ugh. I guess we'll just have to change the aesthetic of this video to be a bit more downbeat. I mean, you can't have an upbeat message in the rain like, oh, I'm so happy that we're here on the Bedrock version. Oh, things sure are better, and they did implement every console edition exclusive feature. But there is actually a mildly upbeat message to me, which is to say that the limitation which many people saw in the limited size worlds was one of my boons. I loved the fact that this world was so limited because it meant that anything you changed would be that way forever. Some people see, you know, like in the same way that if you had a canvas, a piece of paper that was infinite size, it would be hard to doodle on it because if you ever got bored of that set of doodles, you just move to another page. If you only had a book with one page and you had to really make it count, you would have a very beautiful page by the end. Sometimes, to quote a bad phrase that is often not true, less is more. And so when the world expanded, you can see how even though I built a fair amount out there with things like this or my house fire that says subscribe or die, or you know, like I think it's subscribe or else actually. It's a little bit more thinly veiled, but you can see looking around the rest of this world that the build density just gets much lower. In the main world here, the biggest unbuilt area is probably this forest, and even then there's a jungle temple in there, there's a hole down to Bedrock. Finding a place in this world where I haven't built something in a given map segment is actually surprisingly hard to do, but outside of that main area, it's a lot more reasonable, and outside of the area that's covered in this map, it's just a small small collection of islands that are pocketed together, and so having a world that was limited meant that I got used to the idea that builds should be close together. In the modern age of Minecraft, if you want to make a build in a mushroom biome, you go off to the mushroom biome and then you make a nether portal over there, but in the Xbox 360 days, you would just have it be there, and you'd get there via a more reasonable means of transport, because transport was also hugely different. Elytras did exist towards the end, and obviously so too did blue ice, or indeed packed ice boats on the thing. However, minecarts used to run so much faster, and the nether used to scale less. So if the overworld was 864 by 864 blocks for the lion's share of the time of the episodes I played in this world, and so if 864 by 864 was the overworld size, you might assume, if you know your Minecraft facts, that the nether would be scaled 8:1, and so it would be, I guess, what would that be, like 100 by 100 blocks? But you would be incorrect. The nether was scaled at a weird 3:1 ratio, which you'd think would be one of the biggest headlining points of why the nether was so interesting. This different scaling should result in all sorts of different things and should make the nether so much further apart than otherwise. However, interestingly, ultimately the nether was still very, very tiny. Being just over a couple hundred blocks by a couple hundred blocks meant that realistically there was never too much to explore, and even if you found your Soul Sand Valley and your whole the Neverwarp Valley, rather, I should say, the console exclusive version. But if you look around and you see this over here, you're never that far, probably only a few dozen blocks from your Nether Fortress and from everything else in the world that matters. This also leads to a very interesting thing, which is that ultimately the Nether was never that good for transport. You would come here to go to a Nether Fortress, you'd come here to get your Wither Skeleton Skulls and make a beacon, but outside of the actual tasks that you were required to do in your Nether, it wasn't really that useful of a place, because Because think about it, if I want to go from one end of my Minecraft world to another, sure, they can be really closely linked together. Just to show you the midpoint between my two portals, one at either side of my world where my bases are. One is found over there, and one is found down this staircase. So we're talking literally 35 blocks between them or something like that. I used to, back in the day, climb down this mountain right here, back before I built the Blackstone, but I used to just walk all the way down here and then down the gravel, and it was always getting destroyed by ghast, but that's kind of besides the point. All it would take me is walking down one simple hill, walking between some pools of lava, and boom, I had crossed my entire Minecraft world. But yet, it was never my preferred form of transport. Not just because of ghasts, but also because of the loading screen between dimensions. Think about it. If you are going on such a short journey, just 400 blocks, what sense does it make to let the game go through all of this effort in generating in the chunks, etc., when you could use one of the better forms of transport, because Minecraft console was dominated by the minecart. There are two reasons for this. One is the smaller worlds. Obviously, the smaller the world, the more useful slower forms of transport could be, but also it wasn't a slower form of transport. To this day, one of the best decisions 4J made that for some reason Java and Bedrock developers alike have decided not to implement is they made minecarts twice as fast. And bear in mind, twice as fast isn't like, oh, this is lightning speed and you're going across the world so quickly. It just means not painfully slow. I mean, to show you an example of this, let's get in a minecart and let's go to the opposite side of the world. At 1 times speed, yeah, this is fine. But if I speed up my footage by 2 times right now, whoa, okay, all of a sudden you feel like you're actually going somewhere. You feel like you've actually made a difference. And honestly, to me, it feels like right now this is, if we go back to regular speed, it feels like we have slowed down drastically. I mean, the fact that the game is having a hard time keeping up with the minecart speed says that they're implemented in a way that is clearly not correct. I think if you double the minecart speed, they still aren't going to be used by 90% of players, but they would at least be a choice for the other 10%. So those are the big 3 differences. Minecarts were faster, worlds were smaller, and biomes were smaller as well, which meant that fundamentally my attitude towards this world for the first 5 years had to be different, but also it means that my attitude towards Minecraft in general also has some interesting changes to it. And you can probably see those looking around the world. When you see a lot of builds very close together, a part of it is a choice, I guess you could say, but a part of it was not choice. It was the fact that I only had so much world, so it made sense to have a farming quarter rather than spreading everything out too far apart. And yeah, I always liked the idea that there were distinct areas in a world that was so small, something that is maybe hard to pull off. So those are the big ways that the world itself was fundamentally different and meant that my first few years are so different to the way most people who would start a Bedrock world today might do the same things. However, how I interact with my worlds has changed quite drastically since I shifted to Bedrock. This is interesting because it's not just in the obvious way, and it's not just limited to this Let's Play, but instead affects a lot of other things. And take, for example, this giant project where I leveled a mountain effectively to have this big flat area that was useful for killing mobs and the like. Well, at the time, I thought this was really fun. It was a great terraforming project. I really do like what I've done to the world. However, that was something that I think was true of me playing console, but nowadays, if I wanted to do something like this, I would probably just say, Minecraft has an infinite number of worlds, but also each of their worlds are infinite, if you play Bedrock or Java at least, and so ultimately, if I wanted to find a really flat area, I might just be better off looking somewhere in my existing world. Previously, when this was a world border, I had to make do with the flattest or most convenient piece of terrain that I could, but now, as long as you're willing to use the Nether, which is much better, then you can find these same pieces of terrain somewhere in your world, and so traveling is almost much preferred to bringing the biome back with you. There is still a value to doing it that way, but it seems to be much less. And one of the other things this has changed is it means that when I want to start a new challenge, instead of doing it in the same world, or instead of doing it, like as part of an existing thing, I find myself much more drawn to making a world which will last for the length of a challenge, and then continuing on from there. I think having a long-term world is something I really value, but I'm not sure that the me of today would have started this, and so I'm kind of sad about that. It's one of the downsides, almost, I feel like, to the Bedrock and Java system of doing things, is what connection do you have to your world outside of purely just its age? To me, seeing all of these tiny differences is something that I do like, and it's why one of the things that I really try to do a lot more now is work on these long-term uses that future me can also value. And so previously, this might have meant working on a sheep farm, or, for example, having a big staircase, or even more fun, a big drop going down with these little intervals, so that if I want to start a mine at layer 60 or 54 or 46, I can have these different mines set up for future me. But nowadays, I tend to find that one of the bigger uses of this is not just helping me out in a survival capacity, but also helping me out if I'm ever doing something that isn't directly just my survival world. And so an example of this would be I do texture pack reviews in this world. Whenever I want to show off a texture pack, I use a world which has deliberately been designed from scratch in, vanilla Minecraft, if you will, the base textures. And so if I want to show off how something looks, I feel like this world is good for it. And so there's a couple of changes that I make on the, one change that I've been considering making that I'll just make right now is actually adding some ore to the world. And the main reason that I want to do that is because of the fact that I think that different ores are something that are very important to see when you're looking at a texture pack, and so why not have a handy place where these can all exist right next to each other? And given that dripstone is also something you'll see in a cave, it's kind of fun to me that slowly over time, the world becomes a tiny bit of a museum. I mean, I literally do have a museum as well, but also the rest of the world has a part of that slowly seeping into it. In fact, let's use this wall right here, because I think just behind it is, this is my spider spawner, so this seems like as good a place as any to make all of my ores on the wall. So this space right here, or in fact actually this place right here, it's a bit of an ugly corner. Let's turn it into something pretty by using each of my ores. This is something I am kind of just winging. I've removed all my inventory slots for it. Let's go from deep slate at the bottom, I think that's the logical way to do things, and then have some regular ores on the top, and that way we'll be able to look at these ores with various texture packs and have a vibe as to whether they actually work in a given pack or whether they're incomprehensible. Will I be able to look at all of the ores and know exactly which one is which, or will I get a little bit confused about what each of these things might be? Well, future me will be able to know. And this is one of the things that I've been spending a lot more time kind of thinking about and focusing on than I ever assumed I would have when I started the world. And again, part of that is because I make videos here on YouTube, and that is not the ordinary use case, but also it's something I've noticed a lot of people who have these long-term worlds start to work towards, which is like, the world is not just something for you to play in, it's something for you to experience, either for past you, or I guess for future you I should say. Future you gets to experience what past you built, so part of you is building things for him, and another part of you is considering, like, how will this world look when I show it to whoever you're imagining, and there is a certain joy in that too, which I have to say, like, it's kind of different to the question of this video, but it's something that has come up a lot, and which I do think is a very interesting and compelling point about Minecraft. Anyway, there we go. I think that's actually required for that wall. I couldn't leave it in the form that it was in, and now I can just probably place a couple more blocks over here, and no one will even know that this isn't a normal, natural show of blocks. With that said, I think it's important to be at least slightly self-critical towards your analysis of why things have changed, as much as I could point to almost everything in this video being about the difference between Bedrock and console. The truth is, part of that is actually that I have changed as a person. You have probably changed as a person too if you've been playing console and recently switched, and so another interesting quirk of that is probably also that Minecraft has changed drastically in that time. Regardless of which version of the game you're playing, if you had a Bedrock to Sky High farm, that would have been 192 blocks tall back in the pre 1.2 versions of the game, and then when they doubled the height limit, that went up 128 blocks, and then it went up another 64 blocks, and then another down another 64 blocks during 1.18. This is a huge change, I would have to say. I mean, looking at the world down here, this is only going down about minus 30 blocks, but you can see just how much deeper and taller the worlds have gotten, which means that a lot of the creativity and a lot of the infinite sense of the world is also down to not just how Minecraft itself is more infinite than it's ever been before, but also due to the fact that it literally has more content in each of those individual chunks, meaning that, Minecraft world sizes take longer to generate. Minecraft world sizes can have a lot more storage used to have them, if you will, but also at the same time, Minecraft itself is a more ambitious game, and so your projects can be more ambitious too, which might change how you interact with the world. I'm gonna head back up to my major house, and while I do that, I'm going to talk at least a little bit about the future of how this is all going, as well as whether I'll be switching to the Java edition, because that is now easier than it's ever been before. Back in the days, there used to be Bedrock worlds and Java worlds, and although you could convert between them, you needed some paid software, and it would do crazy things like deleting chests, but over time, as both Java and Bedrock have matured, the conversion between them has gotten easier and easier, and now you can run fully fledged servers which are both Java and Bedrock if you choose to. They usually have to make a compromise on Bedrock about having certain things to do with combat, but the fact that it is possible means that surely, if I wanted to, I could switch my world over to Java. I could start a brand new chapter, I could find new audiences, and I could do things in this world which currently are impossible. I am very cautious of where I explore in this Bedrock world, but I assume that if I switch to Java, I could probably have a much bigger world file size before I have to worry about it randomly deleting itself. Indeed, there are many benefits to playing Java, and so why aren't I? Well, in a way, this question is kind of asking, how do I see the future of Minecraft going, especially in the Java Bedrock division, if you will. And years ago, when Bedrock was announced, a lot of my Java friends expressed interest in wanting to make videos on the versions where some of their fans were, in some cases most of their fans, but none of them actually went through with it. Many people got in contact and said, yeah, I'd love to make a Bedrock video of some form, and in some cases we actively did. However, for most of these YouTubers, the hype around Bedrock kind of fell away almost as soon as the announcement did, because the announcement sounded like it was a brand new Minecraft, and after a bit it became clear, oh, this is the existing Windows 10 or Pocket Edition that has already had its own corner of YouTube, very much in general seems to be a younger audience, but it seems to be like, yeah, it's just that, but coming over to consoles. And for consoles, it's not like they didn't have Minecraft before, there very much was a Minecraft. I've spoken fondly about it in this video and many others, but as it stands, those versions have not been updated, and so the decision between Console Edition and Bedrock is very easy, because over time the delta will only widen. It is shocking to me that there are still some Console Edition exclusive features that you can't find on any Bedrock platform. That is a wild thing by itself. I mean, even the fact that I focus this world around maps so heavily is partially because of the fact that on console, you always start with a map in your hand, and so you see your world via that map almost exclusively, whereas making a map is a weird off-to-the-side item on Bedrock and Java. Even on Bedrock, when they added the spawn with a map option, it's a bad map that you spawn with. It's not centered, it doesn't show you any useful information. It's almost there to make you realize why you don't want a map at spawn, and just these small changes make the way that you play Bedrock fundamentally different to the way that you would play Minecraft Console Edition, and I think there's a similar jump to be had when coming to Java, and so it's important to actually analyze this, not just by saying there are benefits or downsides, but actually by looking at the two side by side. So what are the benefits of me playing the Java edition? Well, I think that one of them would be a little bit more stability. It seems as though bugs are a little bit more proactively fixed on the Java edition, or at the very least, when there is a bug, they announce that it's just a feature really, and it becomes an expected part of the game. Crashes and world files and giant holes going missing, these are things which they desperately try to fix, whereas small behavior issues tend not to be as focused on. This would be a stability benefit, it seems, at least in the zeitgeist, so that is a big benefit. The second benefit is that obviously there are a lot of the YouTube audience who would love to watch the Java version of Minecraft. Even though 80% of people play Minecraft Bedrock, it is weirdly accepted now that Java is the YouTube Minecraft, and so when you're comparing between YouTubers, having someone who also plays that same version seems to be a strength. In my opinion, I would argue it's a weakness. I think being unique is a benefit, but I think there are a lot of viewers who click, they see Bedrock, and they're immediately like, oh, so I guess this video is going to be talking about Huggy Wuggly, Squiggly Wiggly, and some form of weird copyright infringement that's very thinly veiled, and the same towards children, which I am probably not. And so I think that is something which could be a upside, is the fact that people will see Minecraft Java and assume maybe that I'm more serious in that way. And I think the third benefit would be that it would be an experience. There is a lot to be gained from switching version one more time. However, there are some downsides. One of these is the fact that yes, I would have to adjust to a whole new way of doing Minecraft, and most of these would probably be minor, and some would even be big upsides. I would get access to new items like these spectral arrows and that new sweeping edge enchantment. However, I would have to change how I play near constantly, and although it would eventually change, it's kind of weird having to remember multiple versions of Minecraft and the facts between them. This could get even harder if I choose to switch one more time. Something else which is worth mentioning is right now, conversion of things between platforms is fairly doable, and almost everything will convert, but even Minecraft's official tool that they put out for this same purpose cannot convert entities or player inventories. This would mean that I have to put my inventory somewhere and then have myself be deleted and effectively just respawn in the world in the Java edition, something which is entirely doable, but also just feels a bit weird, right? But the final reason I think that is bigger than both of those, the biggest downside to switching, and the one that really me, I think about a lot is the fact that I am on the Bedrock version, partially because I switched over from console, it just converted over easily. It's not just because it was easy to convert though, it was almost a choice. I took a brave decision to jump over to the Bedrock version, and to leave it would be to say not only that I failed in that way, but also it would be a failure to everyone who watches, specifically because they do like that this is the Bedrock version of the game. I know that is likely a small minority, but also it is hardwired into me to stand up for people, to be loyal to the people I care about, and in my case, this has become the Bedrock community. I think that the Bedrock world, in many ways, is very much a underappreciated and overlooked one by YouTube, and me switching would be abandoning it and saying, yeah, well, I just don't care about this anymore, in a way that I don't think is acceptable to do just for a new experience. There are upsides to switching, but the biggest reason that I don't want to is partially because a lot of my console homies have followed me over to Bedrock, but even the people who never played console, who have only ever played on a phone or tablet and then switched to PC and played Bedrock there, I want to be a legitimizing force for you, and also I want to stand up and help make this game better. Rather than accepting or legitimizing the idea of jumping ship, I think it is fair to say, no, this is where my Minecraft is. I don't want to have to move it to a version, then put it into a converter and play on a different version of the game just to get these features. They should come to the version of the game which is the more played one, and I'm not here to start a Java Bedrock war. I do in fact believe that both Java and Bedrock are valid to play, and that's the whole point that I want to continue to raise here on this channel. And even though we reach episode 600 and the Let's Play is in a different space, I'll be honest, the series does go through on and off periods, basically because nowadays the amount of work it requires for a Let's Play is hugely increased to the point where I can't just, take half of a workday or a full workday and pour it into a Let's Play episode. It often requires a lot more than even that, and then that's before talking about everything else. I do think that the Let's Play is in a different space right now, but as we go forward from episode 600 to 700 and beyond, I want to say very firmly and very clearly that we are staying on the Bedrock version, and through this series, you'll watch the Bedrock edition become a better and better version of the game. At least that's what I hope. I think the nostalgic thing about going back through this series is not just looking at 11-year ago me and the fact that I'm wearing a hat for that first episode for some reason. I think something that is important and beautiful to see is that it's not just my world improving slowly episode by episode, it's not just me changing episode by episode. You can literally see Minecraft improving so much to the point where in that first episode the idea of a hunger bar was new, the idea of a bow that you had to charge back was new, and if Minecraft is ambitious enough, I look forward to looking back at this episode in 11 years and saying, oh, there was sure a lot of things missing back then, and that is the dream. Let's see if it becomes reality, because welcome to 2024 everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful one, because I'll see you in episode 601. Also, I might do a live stream with the Java version of my world. I think it'd be fun to see what actually changes using the official conversion program, so we'll do that. But for now, thank you for watching, I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Bye!